It's a delay of game. NFL owners voted unanimously today to push back the Super Bowl coming to Los Angeles by 1 year.
The reason, well, the NFL has a rule that a new venue must hold 2 full NFL seasons before hosting a Super Bowl.
We felt the right thing was to postpone the Super Bowl for a year. So Tampa will take over Super Bowl 55.
And with that, Super Bowl 55, Super Bowl LV, is coming to Tampa Bay, baby. Welcome to the Tampa Bay 55 podcast, the inaugural pod. I am Ryan Bass, news anchor and host at Channel 10, WTSP, CBS here in Tampa. So excited to be partnering with the Rob Higgins for this project.
It's going to be a fun run. I've been dying to get this going, so exciting. We've kept a tight lid on it, but it's finally here, and we're off and rolling.
So to explain, just give a little intro on Rob, the executive director of the Tampa Bay Sports Commission, also CEO of the official Super Bowl host committee for Super Bowl LV coming here to Tampa Bay. A little bit of your background for people that don't know, because I have a little description here, just that I read in the Tampa Bay Times, because I think it accurately describes who you are and what you mean to this community. You ready for it?
I'm ready.
Okay. So this is a quote from Joey Knight as he wrote this in the Tampa Bay Times. Leading the charge to bring these spectacles to our shore is a diminutive dynamo, a homegrown bundle of savvy, charm, and innovation. He's observant, a meticulous note-taker, unconventional yet wholly unassuming. As a result, he consistently has won over those conference rooms, in the process winning bids to host one sports crown jewel after another. I couldn't have done a better job at that. So,
well, I thought it was great, but then I actually Googled diminutive, and I realized it means like a person of really short stature. So while 95% of it was awesome, and I love Joey, we could have used a different adjective.
Just one more term in there would have been better.
Adjective. But no, it was far too kind. Joey Knight's a great guy, and it was way too nice of him to say that.
I figured that was a fitting intro. And for those that don't know you, Rob, just how long I think 15 plus years you've been with the Tampa Bay Sports Commission now, right? As the executive director?
Yeah, I've been around for 15 and a half now. Born and raised in Tampa. I'm just a Tampa kid living a dream to get a chance to help promote our community to the world, to try to bring these events here. It has been a dream come true every day for 15 plus years. So none bigger than Super Bowl coming up. That's what we're here to talk about, and I look forward to it, my friend.
As we go through this podcast, and we will lead you up to Super Bowl 55, the 55 weeks leading up, plus a little bit of bonus coverage after the Super Bowl here in 2021. Can you even wrap your head around that day that's going to be here sooner than you know it?
We're going to blink, and it's going to be here. It's 12 months out now, and our team talks about it feels like it's 12 days out. We've been working on it around the clock now for several months, and it's an exciting time. And to think that really 2 weeks from yesterday, we're going to be officially on the clock. Super Bowl 54 will be in the books, and it's go time for 55.
What can people that are tuning into this podcast each and every week expect from us as we try to bring them a little bit closer to what it takes to put on a Super Bowl here in this city?
I think we want to add a little bit of depth to the perspective that we've provided in the past. I think anybody that's followed us on social media has seen we try to get people behind the scenes, but you can only do so much in 140 characters on Twitter and a Facebook post and on Instagram. So with this podcast, our hope is to go even deeper. We want people to understand just what this Super Bowl means to us. And I think through our conversations each week, through our guests each week, we can shed a little light behind the curtain and give people a truly unique perspective. I don't think this has ever been done before. We'll see at the end if it'll ever be done again. Who knows how bad me and you will screw this up.
I think we'll
but
do it.
I can tell you we're going to have a lot of laughs, a lot of memories, a lot of fun doing it.
It'll be my job to make sure we don't screw this up. And by the way, you mentioned guests. We've got a couple of big ones here on this inaugural Tampa Bay 55 podcast. Number 55 for Super Bowl 55, Derrick Brooks will join us. He's the chair of the Super Bowl host committee. Really cool to have Derrick as a part of this, and we'll get a little bit more into his role and what he'll be doing in bringing the Super Bowl to Tampa Bay. Also, Bryan Glazer, one of the owners of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, he's been integral in bringing Super Bowls, given the stadium and Raymond James Stadium, to this area. So really cool to have those two guests. Their perspective and their roles in this Super Bowl coming here are both significant and going to be key.
No doubt. I mean, you look at Bryan Glazer, what he's done from an ownership perspective and helping get us the Super Bowl, from the facility renovations to the strategy that he helps employ with us when we're working the bid process. He's been phenomenal, and his leadership second to none. And then Derrick Brooks, what can you say? I don't think it's a coincidence that he's helping lead Super Bowl 55. When you think of Tampa Bay and 55, you think of Derrick. And we've got another co-chair with him in Will Weatherford. That's phenomenal. We'll get a chance to talk to him, I'm sure, over the next few weeks. But it's going to be great. No better way to kick things off than with those two, that's for sure.
I actually read a quote from Will who said, he idolized Derrick Brooks, and now he gets to work side by side with him and basically be his co-partner in the backfield for helping to host this Super Bowl here. Pretty cool experience.
They're an incredible 1-2 punch in all these meetings. I call Derrick our defensive coordinator and Will our offensive coordinator, and they provide such unique perspectives. I'd never gotten a chance to work with Will until really over this last year. I knew his brother Drew, who helped us out on the College Football Playoff National Championship, but this has been phenomenal to work with two incredible leaders like this, and I'm telling you, they are working hard. This isn't ceremonial. I know what people will think, Derrick, oh, that's a cute thing, Super Bowl 55 and Derrick's involved. There's not a lot of cute to this. The sleeves are rolled up and they're ready to roll, that's for sure.
There's a lot of hard work that's going to be done over the next 55 weeks as we get to February of 2021 when the Super Bowl is here. Take me through that process first, Rob, because as we heard to open this podcast, LA had to be pushed back a year because the stadium construction wasn't going to be ready yet for 2021. When did you guys and your team step in to be able to host this Super Bowl in really short notice? Because while the announcement came out in May of 2017, you would think that's a lot of time, but clearly you're up against the gun there to kind of get this thing and this ball rolling to host the Super Bowl in 2021.
Well, you really have to rewind even further back to that. You looked at the original bid process. We were bidding on 2019, 2020, and 2021, and we were up against three really compelling bids. You had Miami with a $500 million stadium renovation. You had Atlanta and LA with billion-dollar-plus stadiums. And people thought we were crazy going into that bid process because it was such a long shot. But as we worked with the Glazer family, we worked with our community partners, anytime we have a chance to tell our story, no matter what the odds are, we're going to do it. And so we went in, we told our story. We probably got a little closer than people thought. It ended up going 2019 to Atlanta, 2020 to Miami, and 2021 to LA. A little bit like we had thought in the back of our minds.
Was there some disappointment there at that point?
You're always we play to win. You're always disappointed, but again, if somebody invites us to tell our story, no matter what the odds are, we're going to do it. And you never know what can happen. And then all of a sudden, you start seeing some newspaper articles that the construction on the LA stadium starts falling behind, and you start to wonder, maybe there's a chance. And on a parallel path, we're hosting the College Football Playoff National Championship, that event's first trip to the Southeast, and we're debuting the Riverwalk, and there's so much energy and positive feedback. And I think everybody was taking notice of how well that was going at the time. And then all of a sudden, we got a call from the NFL that said, would you guys be ready? Would you guys be able to revalidate that bid for 2021?
Is your heart racing at that point when the NFL calls you and said, can you guys be ready by this point?
I think the first reaction is, well, there's a chance. It's like Dumb and Dumber. Yeah. So you're saying there's a chance.
The adrenaline, I'm sure, is pumping at that point.
But 90 days is a quick turn to get everything pulled back together. I mean, it's everything from the stadium to hotels to event venues and making sure that we can basically put our best foot forward all together again.
What does that checklist look like? Because for those that aren't familiar, there are certain requirements you have to meet to be able to host the Super Bowl in your city. Not to mention on a short time frame as well.
Well, it's our bid is 8,000 pages. And so you can't just assume those 8,000 pages are good to go. There's some time that's lapsed.
Did you type that all up yourself?
No, I proofread all of it. But we've got great community partners. So you've got hotel contracts, and you've got event venue contracts, and you've got everything you need from the stadium and the airport and all those different things that we have to pull back together. And so while we were excited that there was a new opportunity on the table, there was a lot of work to be done. And so it was a sprint to the finish. We got it done in time, and then shortly thereafter, we got the word from the NFL, and that is such a rewarding moment for our entire team. You're only as good as your last event, and the true testament of whether an event has been successful is whether it decides to come back. We know the first Super Bowl was successful because we got the second one, and so on and so forth. So to think that our community got its 5th Super Bowl and only 3 cities have hosted more than that in the entire country.
Miami, LA, and New Orleans would be the 3.
Right, Miami, LA, New Orleans is a testament to just how our community rallies around these big events. And it comes down to Team Tampa Bay and the community partners wanting to do everything they can, understanding the true value, the stage that we go on because of it. And so to get that word is great, but similar to when the doors swung open and allowed us this opportunity, the real work begins. And so it's been a tighter turn than traditionally. A lot of times on these events, you could have 5, 6, 7 years. I'll never forget. We got our first Frozen Four for 2012. We were awarded in 2005. We had 7 years to get ready.
Not for the Super Bowl.
No. So you're talking about the Super
one.
Bowl and the turnaround involved. It's been tight, but I'm just so proud of how Team Tampa Bay is rallying around it.
I do want to backtrack for a second. I will mention we will be in Miami covering Super Bowl LIV, Super Bowl Live in Miami. We'll be down there from a Tampa perspective looking at how we're going to be getting ready for 2021 on Radio Row. Going to be a cool experience. I've never been on Radio Row before. Have you?
I have. I've never done a podcast, especially with a podcast mogul like yourself.
Oh, yes.
So this is a first foray into
Why,
it.
thanks.
It really is. It's intimidating, but somehow I'm going to make it work. Radio Row is awesome. I'll tell you, there's so much energy. I mean, you have all these media outlets. There's 5,800, last I checked, in terms of credentialed media that come to the Super Bowl, and they all have a job to do. They need to cover it from their perspective. They need to get it back to whatever corner of the world they're coming from. And so we're going to be right in the epicenter of that. We're going to try to bring that to the listeners, that energy. We're going to try to bring guests that'll provide unique perspective that tie back to our host effort. And we're going to try to get some different perspectives in terms of, maybe a former player. We're going to try to get to agents in terms of what maybe their endorsement deals look like there to say what does a good Super Bowl look like for them. Those credentialed media. We want to understand what makes a good Super Bowl. They are a key deciding factor in this whole
Yes,
thing.
they are. Thank you for giving it up to the media. I appreciate that.
Guys like you all of a sudden have a good experience, it's going to be the best Super Bowl in the world. Guys like you complain, we got a problem on our hands. So
there's nothing to complain about in this city.
We're going to try to get into their heads a little bit as part of this podcast and share what they're seeing on the ground there. And I can tell you, our team's going to be down there taking a lot of notes and pictures. We want to be able to provide that perspective to the listeners as well.
It's going to be so cool to get that behind-the-scenes perspective, and that's what this podcast is going to give everybody, is the opportunity to see step by step, piece by piece, what it takes to put on the biggest event arguably in the world in the Super Bowl, and we're going to be able to help provide that. Now, as far as the bid process is concerned, you mentioned Super Bowl here, the NCAA College Football Playoff National Championship. We've had women's Final Fours. WrestleMania is coming up in April, which, throw that into the mix in preparing for a Super Bowl as well. You've got the first and second rounds, I believe, of the NCAA tournament here as well. Take me back, though, to 2008 when you were pitching that bid for the women's Final Four for the first time. And I was able to tell this story a little incorrectly by my fault to Jane Castor, but how you stepped out behind a podium for the bid basically with no pants on and said, we're gonna work our pants off for you. I think that just goes to show that you and your team will go at any lengths to get a big event here to Tampa Bay.
We will. It goes to knowing your audience, and you got to know which audience that's going to work for and which it's not going to work for. But we'd just come off the heels of hosting our first women's Final Four. It was the first women's Final Four that had ever come to the state of Florida. We thought it had gone really well, and we had developed a really deep connection and relationship with the women's basketball committee. They weren't friends, they were family. And so to go into the presentation room just a couple months later, it didn't necessarily feel right just going in there as a business presentation and killing them by PowerPoint. It wouldn't have been the right thing to do. So what we did is each of our speakers dressed up as a different Tampa Bay character. We had a Busch Gardens worker. We had a cruise ship captain. We had a tacky tourist. We had just all these different iconic characters, per se. We had a pirate, obviously. And then I was the MC. So I wore a tuxedo. I overdressed the part. I spent my time at the podium but brought the speakers up one by one, and we get through the whole presentation and shared a lot of laughs with the committee, went through the question and answers, and at the end, the committee chair said, "Do you have anything else you want to say? Do you have any way to close this?" I said, "Absolutely." And I walked from behind the podium, and I didn't have pants on. And they are losing it. I mean, dying laughing.
No pictures, please.
Right. And I said, "Look, you guys know us. Like I said, you're more than friends, you're family. I know you're visual people, and I want you to know that we will work our pants off for you." And I turned around, and on the back of my boxers, it said, "Vote Tampa Bay." And I was so lucky at the time. You know why? Because social media really hadn't taken off at that point. So there was like a few pictures taken, but nobody posted it.
Couldn't share it to iCloud at that point.
That picture it lives somewhere. I don't know where it is, so I'm a little mortified by it. But I can tell you, it was just such a fun moment. So we've tried to do, in our presentations, we've done power cameos, and we've done fun things like that. There's other times, like I said, knowing your audience, that you do need to be really buttoned up from a PowerPoint standpoint and focus there. It's just that moment in time required a little extra,
so you're saying,
and we ended up being awarded.
So you're saying you wouldn't necessarily do that with the NFL owners in the room if you step out with your pants off. That might not land you the bid for the Super Bowl.
I don't know that would go over quite so well. But I tell you, it was such a fun moment from it. We have so many great stories of the year, and hopefully we can cover a lot of them over this next year as part of Tampa Bay 55.
We absolutely will. And there's so many integral parts of the Super Bowl being here. A lot of people just think about the game. But Business Connects is a program that's going to help tie in this community. You have Forever 55, which we'll get into with Derrick Brooks in a little bit too when he joins us on the podcast here. Just take me through how many parts there are, because I don't think visually people understand how many moving parts there are to having a Super Bowl in your town outside of just the 60 minutes played on the football field at Raymond James Stadium.
Oh, it's so much more than one game. I mean, this is really the celebration of sports in America annually. There's no bigger event, and for us to get a chance to host it is truly incredible. But there are a lot of moving parts. You know, it certainly starts with the stadium, and then it moves out from there with all of our hotels. We're using just about every hotel room within driving distance to meet the needs of the overall event. And then event venues. There's the NFL signature events, all the ones you're familiar with, like Super Bowl Experience and NFL Honors and the Media Center and opening night, and the list goes on. And then there's a lot of unsanctioned events that all need venues. All the different parties of the world, that the Ryan Basses of the world are behind the ropes popping bottles. It's those
responsibly, I might add.
Events. Obviously.
And Justin Granite too.
Yeah,
he might get an invite.
Gym, but anyway.
For those that aren't familiar, Justin, by the way, sports one of our main sports anchors at Channel 10. We host a podcast, Bros and Pros, which you,
Avid
my friend, were the first ever guest on that podcast.
I'll never forget it. It was a defining moment in my career, and I will never forget. I'm hoping that we can match that same level of success that we did right out of the gate.
We've had some Joe Madden's been on that podcast, but it doesn't top the level of guest invites that you started out with. I mean, that's the pinnacle.
Patronizing me will get you everywhere, Ryan. Everywhere. But anyway, like I said, ton of moving parts. A lot of people don't understand. 10,000 volunteers as part of this. And that's one of the things. Our volunteers, first line of defense in terms of first impression with our visitors. They're the last impression with our visitors. They can make or break. We talk about making or breaking a media member's experience. The general fan, same way. You know, you got to understand, with the advent of social media, every fan has the opportunity to provide feedback.
Every
and they
detail,
should.
too.
And
every
they
detail.
should. So we've got to make sure that anything that would traditionally get taken for granted, we help work through our partners to deliver it in a really unique way. And so that's the focus.
I love what you've done with the host committee, because I think there's a lot of variety, that's on this committee, headed by yourself. Derrick Brooks is on there. Will Weatherford, as you mentioned. Take me through the process of assembling the host committee, which obviously is in charge of every, being basically the gateway to the Super Bowl here in Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I mean, we look at it from like a key stakeholder standpoint. So, it starts with Will and Derrick and their leadership. You move on to the franchise. We've got Bryan Glazer and Darcy Glazer-Kasowitz on it as well. And then the different perspectives, the different initiatives we have going on then help round it out. So an initiative like Business Connect, which I know we'll dive into, phenomenal initiative, helps prop up small businesses from around our community and get them access to the Super Bowl and a ton of professional development too. So Bamitra Simmons is helping lead that subcommittee. We have probably 16 to 20 subcommittees that then fall under the host committee as well. So they all feed up in to the overall host committee. We're fortunate to have so many great partners on it. Ton of moving parts, but it's going to be a great run, that's for sure.
Well, we certainly can't have a Super Bowl 55 without the number 55 with us. How many times have you heard that, by the way?
Not enough.
Not enough? All right, I'll say a few more on this podcast then. We've got Derrick Brooks with us, Hall of Famer. You got a gold jacket, obviously in the Ring of Honor, one of the best Buccaneers of all time. And now you are co-chairing, I should say, the Super Bowl host committee here for Super Bowl 55. It's so awesome to work with this guy every day, Rob.
It was my second favorite call. The first favorite call, which we've talked about, is when the NFL said we were getting it. The second one was calling Derrick and saying, hey, we need a leader, and I really sold him all on it. And he agreed to it, and then I said, oh, by the way, it's Super Bowl 55. And he absolutely lit up, and we've been off to the races ever since.
I can see, man. For those that obviously are listening on the podcast, you are beaming from ear to ear, man. This has got to be such a cool experience for you, having played on the field. Is it the same type of adrenaline rush to bring a Super Bowl here as you did in playing in one?
Well, it really is when you start to dive into the weeds of everything. And I think that's what Rob and myself, along with Will Weatherford, explained, that we're just not figureheads of this movement, of this event that's coming here. And that was the one, if I had to say requirement that I had of Rob, was to really have me involved. The skill set that I have, I want to be able to display it not just in a leadership mode, but in a serving mode. And that's the fabric that I accepted this position in doing, knowing how important that this was to our area, not just our city. From the time we started to bid on this, knowing we were, going against some giants, L.A. getting a new stadium, 2 teams, New Orleans, Miami, the typical, ones that are at the table that get the bids, that we were not shying away from those efforts. And from those conversations, starting back with Todd Lawicki when he was at the NFL office as the COO, it was, we're going to put our best foot forward, and I want to be involved in this effort to bring a Super Bowl here to Tampa.
Well, I want to ask this too, Derrick, because I was reading you've taken interest in this back when you were about to play in the Super Bowl. Didn't you ask Malcolm Glazer what it takes to put on a Super Bowl? And I remember as I was reading in a meeting with Tony Dungy, he was talking about how much it does for the community. Take me through that, when it first started conjuring in your mind that you wanted to see the process of what it takes to put on a Super Bowl.
Well, it started when we got our new stadium here, from the old Tampa sombrero to building the new stadium, and the league promising that at the time they were awarding teams and cities with new stadiums, they were getting Super Bowls. And it just dawned on me, man, that's a process and what goes behind it. And really the one person that sparked my interest was Leroy Selman. And I met with Mr. Selman as he was in the midst of getting the football program going at USF. It was, at that time, he was negotiating for the team to play in the stadium. So we just started having talks about these things, and he just asked me, he said, why don't you get involved? I think you'll really be an asset to understanding what this process starts to take. So I started asking Mr. Glazer questions whenever he was around about, hey, how was it like being in the room? What is it going to take to get this done? And he really stood on the table for us, as I remember, that they were going to take the Super Bowl away from us. And he was not going to allow that to happen.
2001, by the way, the first one?
Yeah, 2001.
The first, and for a man that did not talk
under the first one under the Glazer ownership, I should say.
It was their first one, and obviously the family excited about this, and let's just say through NFL languages, it was probably looking like it wasn't going to happen for Tampa, but he refused to let that happen. And for as the story goes on years later, he was not leaving the owners' meetings until Tampa had what was promised to them in a Super Bowl. And he just started sharing some of those things with me behind the scenes, and that just led to a multitude of conversations that led me to believe that I want to be a part of things that this city was involved with, not just the NFL. But as my career has it, it comes full circle that meeting people like Rob along the way has allowed my talent to be involved in the business side of what this city could do in terms of major events.
Derrick, you look at the impact of the Super Bowl. We talk about it from a variety of different ways. You know, there's the economic impact, the tourism spending that takes place, all the hotel visitor room nights, all those things. There's that marketing impact, you know, the visibility that happens for our community, being on the biggest of stages. And then there's the social impact. And I think that's been such a key driver for you personally with how you've touched our community in so different ways, and now with this Forever 55 legacy initiative that we're embarking upon.
It's going to be so cool, and obviously, no coincidence with the name there too.
He will be the first to tell you he didn't name it, and I'll tell you he will be the first to tell you he didn't argue either.
I did not name it, but I did not abstain from any voting either. But as Rob leads to, this part of it, being in the process, and really give kudos to him and Ken and their leadership for being creative and tying these things.
Ken Hagen is who you're talking about?
Ken Elder
from our team.
We got a bunch of Kens.
We got a bunch of Ken Hagen.
We got a plethora of Kens.
Yes,
to reference. Just wanted to make sure to clarify.
So for clarity, it was them thinking about how can we have an impact in our community from a social standpoint that's not just a physical building, physical park. Let's look for something that lasts along a legacy that impacts more kids. And for me, that aligns with everything that I do with Derrick Brooks Charities in our high school is where is the thing in there that we're going to throw the rope back and help others. Yes, physical buildings are great, and there was a time where the NFL was doing that. They were leaving a physical, lasting legacy in the cities where we want to extend that beyond that. We're about, hey, how can the social impact be more about relationships, kids, adults, touching every aspect of our community and serving in that way. So our social initiatives are tied to a wide range of people that we cast the net out and wanted to affect that. And for me, that was not going to be, something that was left behind. It wasn't going to be an afterthought. Hey, let's do these things. And by the way, we have these. No, this is a part of our core planning. And I saw it come to life with the CFP when the college football playoffs was here and how the social impact of what that initiative did for teachers.
All the money that went towards education in that area.
$1.2 million.
To the fact that they want to come back. So imagine if we can take the event of the Super Bowl and mask that with all the resources behind it, we can do a lot for Forever 55 and our social initiatives here in Tampa. It's one that we're going to set the stage for the cities that come after us. The bar is going to be set high in order for them to match this part of our legacy, and that's something that I'm very proud to be one of the leaders on.
Can you speak to this man that's beside you, Rob Higgins? Because for the people that are listening to this podcast, I've been pumping the guy up for the last 45 minutes that we've been doing this, but he has been such an integral part to what is happening to this city from a sports standpoint and bringing these massive events. The Super Bowl is just added to the list of the plethora of events that this man has helped bring.
Yes, I guess a podcast in time really don't give us due justice in talking about the impact that Rob has had. And for me, for the last probably 2.5 years, I've been able to see this up close and personal with all the events here. We're talking from women's Final Four to WrestleMania to Super Bowl to college football playoffs to NHL All-Star games to you name it, Frozen Four. So
I forgot about the All-Star game in Gasparilla that coincided a few years ago as well that you married perfectly.
So, even with USF athletics. So I've been fortunate enough to be in a small circle to see Rob go to work and be a great ambassador for our region here and making sure the world understands that we are capable of putting on a great experience, having impacts, whether it's economic, whether it's social, whether it's spiritual, whether it's collegiate athletics, whether it's professional sports, you name it, Tampa can be a destination to host your event. And he's probably done it in a way that's very similar to mine. We don't need a lot of fanfare. Doing it with a great spirit of humility. That's why a lot of people pick the phone up when Rob Higgins called. So his impact is going to be well beyond his reach and the scope of work that he's doing. As I said before, he does it without a lot of fanfare, but it impacts a lot of people in a lot of areas, and I'm glad that he embarked me to be a part of his team.
Well, he just said a lot of nice things about me that are totally not deserved. I'm not going to do the same. I'm going to tell him he ticks me off every meeting. We're in meetings constantly, and he makes me so mad because here's what he does is we'll go through all this planning and make all this progress and make a lot of great decisions, and then he'll chime in at the end with some idea that I'll be so mad that I didn't think of myself. And it's every single meeting, and we're just so lucky to have your perspective, and you're so measured. And I had the good fortune 20 years ago to work for Leroy Selman.
Yes.
And there are so
the late, great Leroy
many communities that don't get a single person like Leroy Selman in their generation. And Derrick and I have talked about it before. It's the ultimate compliment for me to say we have had another like Leroy. You've walked in his footsteps. Your character's impeccable. Your leadership's impeccable. You've taught us we're going to do things the right way every step of the way, and we are so lucky to have you.
Well, thank you. And I do it all from a spirit of humility and a spirit of serving. You think everything's with me start by, serving and seeing others blessed in whatever role that is. And I've just been fortunate enough to understand that this space and place, a lot of people don't get a chance to do it. And to do it again, some of the business work I've been doing has been quote-unquote post-retirement. When I played, I only had one phone. Now that I retired, I got 3.
Let me tell you something. I'm sitting across from you right now.
Has a cell phone for every day of the week. And the other thing people don't know about him, because he works.
Which number do you have? Which number do you have?
I just have one.
Okay.
And he answers, thankfully. He answers. But he does the appeals for the NFL. And part of the agreement for him working with us is he can't fine any of us, and I made sure he understands. There's no fines. There's none of that if we go sideways.
Oh,
we appreciate everything.
Sitting across from us, he could probably suit up in Super Bowl 54 or 55 if he wanted to.
Not exactly.
You still got it, man. You still got it.
We know it. Derrick, thank you for everything. We look forward to next week in Miami. We're going to learn a lot, that's for sure. And we couldn't be more fortunate to have you wearing the same jersey as us. That's for sure.
And, Rob, you were mentioning our Super Bowl host committee, and who better to welcome in now than Bryan Glazer, the chairman and, of course, owner of the Buccaneers here with us. So glad. You two obviously go back way more than I do with Bryan.
Well, when it comes to Super Bowls, it starts with our franchise here, and we're so fortunate to have such a great ambassador, not only for the franchise but for the community. And as we've gone through these bid processes, what I've learned over the last several years is there's nobody better, and we're so fortunate to have you as an ally and with us in the trenches as we go through the bid process. You've been incredible, and this one was a little bit of a non-traditional bid process. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about that as we went through it. I think we were going into it knowing we were a long shot originally as part of the process with Atlanta, Miami, and LA and their new facilities, but then all of a sudden things changed and we got the opportunity.
No, exactly. A traditional bid process, the NFL will tell a number of cities they could bid on the Super Bowl, and going in, you kind of know what your opportunity is, your chances are. And in this case, we were up against a number of new facilities in Atlanta. Miami poured many hundreds of millions of dollars into their stadium, put a roof on it. It's Los Angeles with a brand new stadium. But at the same time, we couldn't opt out of not bidding. We wanted to be in the mix. You never know what's going to happen. And I think it's important for the NFL owners, the rest of the league, to see what we have to offer and get in front of them just for future opportunities. And even though we lost out this time, we got the call that they loved our bid package, but the Los Angeles stadium was going to be a year delayed. Mm-hmm. And so could you step in, as you know, Rob? And because of your hard work, we were able to step in and get it done. No,
it was your vision. I think all along throughout as we've gone through these bids, you just kept saying, guys, it's not if, it's when. And we know it's going to be an uphill battle, but keep telling our story. And when we're done telling our story, tell it again. And I think that's been a big part of the success is you personally helping drive that.
I appreciate that. But it's something I've always said. Every time we've lost a bid, It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Because this community has so much to offer, and when we can host a Super Bowl, they get together, they do great things. So we knew if we weren't going to win one time, we were going to get our Super Bowls. And we over the past 30, 40 years, we've gotten our share of Super Bowls. We've gotten once every 8, 9, 10 years, and we're still on that range of getting those. So things are good, and even a brighter future with what's happening here.
That's right. Only 3 cities have hosted more. You're going to hear that line a lot on this podcast.
Yes, you are.
Only 3 cities have hosted more. We're just going to try to keep climbing.
Now,
that
this
ladder.
will be the 5th for Tampa, but Mr. Glazer, for your family, I believe this will be the 3rd, right? Since you've taken
That's
ownership.
correct. That's correct.
How much does this hosting a Super Bowl mean for your family? Because you have to take such a sense of pride that you're able to bring the biggest event in sport to this city.
It is a tremendous sense of pride for our family. It's also a great gratitude to the rest of the owners who have entrusted us and respected us enough to honor us with that vote. And we work very hard behind the scenes to get that done. But it's a very exciting time for us between our first Super Bowl that we've hosted here and now our 3rd. And it's very exciting for me. I can't wait for the owners to see what's happening here in this community. The changes since the last game here are unbelievable.
Yeah, nothing's changed since 01 and 09, right? Since 2020. I mean, everything seems to stay the same. Huh?
It's not going to be a pardon our dust. It's a pardon our progress come February 2021. Speaking of construction, there's no way this Super Bowl happens without the renovation at the stadium. At least that's my opinion. But $160 million renovation. Your family generously funded $130 million of that. I mean, that is an incredible move, and it keeps our building state of the art. What has that facility renovation meant to us in the overall landscape of things?
Well, we're very proud of where the stadium is today because, given its age, it's a lot of stadiums age poorly. Our stadium has aged very well, and being able to put that kind of money in and getting the results we got with the new scoreboards, the renovated clubs, the renovated concourses, from top to bottom, it's a great stadium. Some of these stadiums are architectural wonders on the outside. We put the money on the inside where the fans are sitting. It's a great fan experience from the time you get into the stadium, from the time you walk around, the time you get to your seat, and we think it's second to none.
It all starts with that place to play, and so for us to have a venue like that allows for another Super Bowl to come back, that's for sure.
I think a lot of people are going to be surprised that haven't been to Raymond James Stadium in quite some time to see I use the word facelift, but the nice little additions you all have made. The Stadium Club, by the way, is spectacular. For those that haven't been in there to see a game, it's luxury when you're watching a football game in there.
It turned out really well. We're very proud of what the club, the way they've turned out, but we also made sure that the general fans had great improvements also. The main concourses, we tore down all the walls, poured in glass, brings tremendous light into them, renovated all the concession stands. It's all been fixed from not only, for the regular ticket holder up to the club seat and suite holders also.
You obviously know Derrick Brooks very well.
Yes.
He's a Hall of Famer. Super Bowl 55 has the new face of it, and Mr. 55 who will be here. He's also going to be heading up this committee, which is really cool to have his fingerprints all over this. Can you give me a little insight into Derrick's role and how special of a guy he is? I know he's taken an interest a long time ago in what it takes to bring a Super Bowl to this town.
Well, Derrick, not only since he's retired from football, has been successful in business and off the field. That's very important. He's just not a person is in name only. As with him and Will Weatherford, co-chairing this committee, they're two very active members of this committee, as Rob knows, and we're thrilled to have him part of it. Being the 55th Super Bowl and the forever 55 programs that are going to come from it, and it means a lot to him. But he's putting all his heart and soul behind it.
He helped us get the event with promises. He's helping us deliver it. So we appreciate you being in the trenches with us. Everything that your entire family's doing to help our community host our community's 5th Super Bowl. It's incredible.
No, happy to be here. Thanks,
Let's
guys.
get the Bucs here next year in 55,
We will
right?
do
First
everything we
ever
can.
home team to play in a Super Bowl. Let's make it happen.
No team has done it. We want to be the first.
I think
we would
can
second
get there.
that.
Let's
That
do
is
it.
for sure.
Let's do it.
Let's make it happen. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Man, it's great to hear from both Derrick and Bryan. Obviously, two integral parts to bringing the Super Bowl here to Tampa Bay. Can you kind of take me behind the scenes, peel back the curtain on what has been done to prepare up to this point for the game being now basically a year out?
Sure. I think really, again, it would go back like the stadium has been getting prepared. We then have gone through and worked with all those hotels, buttoned up all the different hotel contracts as part of it. Event venues, again, a gigantic piece to it because it is so much more than a game. And then we've been working with each of our different community partners, whether it's the airport to making sure everything, the red carpet gets rolled out there as people arrive, to assembling our volunteer initiative as well. A huge part of it is the fundraising. This is basically a private-public partnership. We're fortunate to have some great investors like Hillsborough County, the city of Tampa, who helps on city services, the Florida Sports Foundation, and others that are helping on the public side of things. But then we have companies that step up and help provide resources to make sure the event is a big success as well. So the fundraising piece of it, which Will and Derrick have been really involved in too, is a big part of it. So again, a lot of different ingredients that go into the recipe. I feel like we're in really good shape. We're never going to celebrate until we're across the goal line, a year from now. But in terms of this moment in time, we've made really good progress. The next big benchmark for us is Miami. Miami has done a fantastic job with Super Bowls. We're eager to take a ton of notes, a lot of pictures. We've actually already been down to Miami 3 or 4 times to sit in on their production meetings and planning meetings and learn what they're going through, so that when we get to, let's say, August of next year, we can compare where we were at against Miami when they were in August of their time frame. So again, it's been going well so far, but we got to keep our eye on the ball, make sure we continue to do things at the highest level possible.
I spoke with Tampa Mayor Jane Castor, and her interview you'll be able to hear on this podcast as well. She said her perspective will be a little different, obviously, than the fans when she goes down to Miami for the Super Bowl. She's going to look at it more from a security perspective. Obviously, having a police background and having been the chief of police here in Tampa, she's going to have her eye on that aspect. When you go down to Miami, what specifically will you be looking at? What will your vantage point be that will be vastly different from what the casual fan will see when they head down to Miami?
Well, safety and security is always going to be the top priority of it all. Now, we're fortunate we have so many great agencies here that whose reputation is second to none. When you look at TPD and HCSO and Homeland Security and the FBI and all of those, who will really take the lead from that standpoint. We'll obviously have our eye on that, but those are the experts. But then you look at all the different experiences that we want to continue to understand and immerse ourselves in, whether it's the fan experience, the player and team experience, the media experience, anybody and everybody up and down the line. We really want to dive into that. So it's going to those events. It's going to an event like opening night, which down there will be at Marlins Park. Here it'll be at Amalie Arena. We'll have a couple people from Amalie Arena there to really study it as well. We'll be side by side with them, so that as we continue to understand each of these components, we can help bring it together from a holistic approach as well.
Amalie Arena is going to be the site of opening night for Super Bowl.
Amalie Arena will be the site of opening night. They will be, and it's going to be a great experience there. I can tell you, Mr. Vinnick and their team have been phenomenal supporters of the overall effort, and have done a great job up until this point, making sure we're ready from that perspective too. 2009
was a little bit different than 2021 will be, and this will be our 5th Super Bowl, as we mentioned when we opened the pod. Every single one you take something away, right? Every single one's got to be a little different. But what's changed for you as you game plan for this Super Bowl versus 2009 when you were a part of bringing that event here to Tampa Bay as well?
Well, I think 2 things have happened. One is our community has evolved not only in the last 10 years, but over the last few years. I mean, 2009, you could probably find 2 places to eat in downtown, and now we have like real choices. And we didn't have the Riverwalk and all of those different things. So our community has totally transformed. I look at Women's Final Four, which we just hosted in April of this past year. We'd hosted it in 2015, only 4 years ago, and the NCAA and everybody involved was blown away by how much we had changed in just those 4 years. So then you date all the way back. And so then the other thing on a parallel path is just the evolution of the world. You look at little things like ride sharing. Little things like, certainly there was social media starting around 2009, but
not to the extent it is now. Yeah.
It did become what it is now. Who'd have thought? You and I, 10 years later, we'd be doing a podcast. We didn't even know what that was back then. So there's
I didn't even know you 10 years ago, and now I'm better for knowing you.
I know, and you were probably in middle school. This is great. So
Yeah, just about.
So there's things that have
I graduated college. Thank you very
have
much.
happened since then that that make for really key adjustments. The one thing though that's consistent is every year the Super Bowl gets bigger and bigger, and that's what's going to be so cool to see in Miami. Is we just were in Atlanta and we took a ton of notes and pictures at Super Bowl 53 there and understanding their footprint. And then you go look at the South Florida footprint, and ours is somewhere in between there. And so we want to take everything we really liked at each, add it into to our model, and then take the lessons we've learned from our own events. We're going to learn things in April with WrestleMania that we didn't know about ourselves, and they're going to teach us things. From a branding perspective and a storytelling standpoint, there's nobody better than WWE. So there's things that we've already picked up from them and in meetings that I think we're going to be able to roll into our toolkit too. So it's going to be awesome. As I keep saying, I can't stop saying it. It's going to be fun.
Well, if this inaugural podcast is giving you any indication, this is going to be a fun ride over the next 55 weeks. Given what you're going to hear on this podcast, the behind-the-scenes look you're going to get from your perspective, Rob, your team's perspective, and then, of course, the guests we're going to get. I don't know if it gets much bigger than Derrick Brooks and Bryan Glazer to open the pod, but we're going to try to keep getting better and better each and every week.
We got to keep that level. We got to keep your Pocket Square game here, and we got to keep our guests up here as well. I'm confident in your Pocket Square game. Are we going to deliver on guests? And I believe we can.
Well,
what do you think?
If the suit game matches with us with the Pocket Square game, I think we'll be on point. All right, so you ready to go down to Miami?
I told you to text me about that, by the way.
I did.
We coordinated a little bit on the suits, making sure
we're
you open
in
collar.
The same color scheme.
I wish I would have known the Pocket Square next week.
Hey, I got the pin, okay? I'm matching with the pin.
I like it.
And we didn't even text each other on that.
No.
Justin and I actually text each other each day what we're wearing to make sure we're not
and
crossing
Justin
over.
usually says tank top,
and
right?
Justin usually goes really tight and tank top. Yeah, and I
know.
All right, you ready to take the pod on the road, man? Let's head to Miami.
We are. We're ready. It's going to be awesome.
Café con leche. All right. I got some Coyo Taco. Have you never been to Coyo Taco in Miami?
I have not.
Ooh.
That's right. I'm going with somebody that's familiar with. I totally forgot.
305, born and raised here.
Yes.
So, look, you may be the king of Tampa Bay, but I certainly know my way around the 305. So let me be your host when we go down to Miami, at least culinary-wise.
Yes,
and
in.
maybe an after-hours cocktail if we get all our work done, which I know we certainly will.
If we get all our work done, that's for sure.
Bienvenido a Miami, the Tampa Bay 55 podcast, heading to South Florida. We'll see you there.